Question 302. The cool storage tier stores data offline and offers the lowest storage cost, but also the highest cost to rehydrate and access data. Is it true or false? And the correct answer is it's false. Explanation. Azure Storage offers different access tiers for your blob storage, helping you store object data in the most cost-effective manner. The available access tiers include Hot Access Tier, optimized for storing data that is accessed frequently, for example, images for your website. Cool Access Tier, optimized for data that is infrequently accessed and stored for at least 30 days, for example, invoices for your customers. Archive Access Tier, appropriate for data that is rarely accessed and stored for at least 180 days with flexible latency requirements, for example, long-term backups. The following considerations apply to different access tiers. Only the hot and cool access tiers can be set at the account level. The archive access tier isn't available at the account level. Hot, cool, and archive tiers can be set at the blob level, during upload or after upload. Data in the cool access tier can tolerate slightly lower availability, but still requires high durability, retrieval latency, and throughput characteristics similar to hot data. For cool data, a slightly lower availability, service level agreement, and higher access cost compared to hot data are acceptable trade-offs for lower storage cost. Archive storage stores data offline and offers the lowest storage cost, but also the highest cost to rehydrate and access data. Next question. Which of the following is an excellent choice if you want to run multiple instances of an application on a single host machine? And the options are A. Functions, B. Containers, C. Blueprints, D. Scale sets. And the correct answer is option B. Containers. Explanation. While virtual machines are an excellent way to reduce cost versus the investments that are necessary for physical hardware, they are still limited to a single operating system per virtual machine. If you want to run multiple instances of an application on a single host machine, containers are an excellent choice. What are containers? Containers are a virtualization environment. Much like running multiple virtual machines on a single physical host, you can run multiple containers on a single physical or virtual host. Unlike virtual machines, you don't manage the operating system for a container. Virtual machines appear to be an instance of an operating system that you can connect to and manage, but containers are lightweight and designed to be created, scaled out, and stopped dynamically. While it's possible to create and deploy virtual machines as application demand increases, containers are designed to allow you to respond to changes on demand. With containers, you can quickly restart in case of crash or hardware interruption. One of the most popular container engines is Docker, which is supported by Azure. Containers are managed through a container orchestrator, which can start, stop, and scale out application instances as needed. There are two ways to manage both Docker and Microsoft-based containers in Azure: Azure Container Instances and Azure Kubernetes Service. Next question. Purchasing your own infrastructure and deploying it in your own data center is an example of CapEx. Is it no or yes? And the correct answer is it's yes. Explanation. Deploying your own data center is definitely an example of CapEx. This is because you need to purchase all the infrastructure upfront before you can use it. Next question. You have an on-premises infrastructure and would like to extend its capabilities by making use of Azure services. Which type of cloud deployment is this an example of? And the options are A. A public cloud, B. A hybrid cloud, C. A private cloud, D. An internal cloud. And the correct answer is option B. A hybrid cloud. Explanation. A hybrid cloud is a combination of a private cloud and a public cloud. A hybrid cloud is a computing environment that combines a public cloud and a private cloud by allowing data and applications to be shared between them. Hybrid cloud provides the most flexibility. Organizations determine where to run their applications. Organizations control security, compliance, or legal requirements. Next question. A dash contains security rules that allow or deny inbound network traffic to or outbound network traffic from several types of Azure resources. And the options are A. Network gateway, B. Network security group, C. Root filter, D. Domain name service, and the correct answer is it's option B. Network security group. Explanation. You can use an Azure Network Security Group to filter network traffic to and from Azure resources in an Azure virtual network. A network security group contains security rules that allow or deny inbound network traffic to or outbound network traffic from several types of Azure resources. For each rule, you can specify source and destination, port, and protocol. Network security group security rules are evaluated by prioritizing using the 5-tuple information: source, source port, destination, destination port, and protocol to allow or deny the traffic. A flow record is created for existing connections. Communication is allowed or denied based on the connection state of the flow record. The flow record allows a network security group to be stateful. If you specify an outbound security rule to any address over port 80, for example, it's not necessary to specify an inbound security rule for the response to the outbound traffic. You only need to specify an inbound security rule if communication is initiated externally. The opposite is also true. If inbound traffic is allowed over a port, it's not necessary to specify an outbound security rule to respond to traffic over the port. Next question. Which of the following can an application retrieve security tokens from? Choose the best possible answer. And the options are A. An Azure SQL database, B. An Azure Key Vault, C. A certificate store, D. Azure Active Directory, Azure AD. And the correct answer is option B. Azure Active Directory. Explanation. Please note that the question asks us to retrieve security tokens. You might be thinking about Azure Key Vaults here. A service such as Azure Key Vault can keep security token. However, to access or retrieve something from the Key Vault, we need to be authenticated to retrieve them. To authenticate, we can use Managed Identity that gives Azure services an automatically managed identity in Azure AD. So, the answer is Azure AD. Remember that Azure AD provides access tokens. Azure Key Vault is used to securely store passwords, secrets, certificates, and tokens. Next question. Which of the following categories does Azure VPN Gateway belong to? And the options are A. Network as a Service and AAS, B. Platform as a Service, PaaS, C. Infrastructure as a Service, IaaS, option D. Software as a Service, SaaS, and the correct answer is option C. Infrastructure as a Service. Explanation. According to the official documentation, next question. Which of the following would you recommend for these given requirements? Number 1. Create thousands of identical virtual machines in minutes. Number 2. Deploy across availability zones to protect against data center failures. And the options are A. Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets, B. Azure Kubernetes, C. Azure Virtual Machines, D. Azure Blueprints. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets. Explanation. According to the official website, Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets is automated virtual machine scaling that helps you cost effectively simplify the deployment, management, and availability of your applications. Next question. A startup is planning to use multiple Azure SQL databases. Which of the following will help them to reduce cost if the databases have unpredictable usage demands? And the options are A. Azure Blueprints, B. Azure Policies, C. Elastic Pools, D. Scale Sets. And the correct answer is option C. Elastic Pools. Explanation. Just like Azure VM scale sets are best friends with Azure VMs, for Azure SQL databases, we have Azure SQL Database Elastic Pools. These are a simple, cost-effective solution for managing and scaling multiple databases that have varying and unpredictable usage demands. The databases in an elastic pool are on a single server and share a set number of resources at a set price. Elastic pools in Azure SQL database enable SaaS developers to optimize the price performance for a group of databases within a prescribed budget while delivering performance elasticity for each database. Next question. Which of the following would you use to deploy and manage containerized applications to provide an integrated continuous integration and continuous delivery experience and enterprise-grade security and governance? And the options are A. Azure Container Instances, B. Azure Batch, C. Azure Kubernetes, D. Azure Functions. And the correct answer is option C. Azure Kubernetes. Explanation. You can deploy and manage containerized applications more easily with a fully managed Kubernetes service. Azure Kubernetes Service offers serverless Kubernetes, an integrated continuous integration and continuous delivery experience, and enterprise-grade security and governance. You can also unite your development and operations teams on a single platform to rapidly build, deliver, and scale applications with confidence. Next question. Which of the following is not a cost-saving solution? And the options are A. Using Azure reservations to prepay, B. Using Azure Hybrid Benefit to repurpose software licenses on Azure, C. Using spending limits to restrict your spending, D. Shutting down virtual machines at night. And the correct answer is option D. Shutting down virtual machines at night. Explanation. Shutting down virtual machines at night is not a cost-saving solution. Next question. Your team is planning to build a set of REST-based web APIs by using your choice of language and framework. The produced apps should be consumable from any HTTP or HTTPS-based client. Which of the following would be a great fit for this use case? And the options are A. Azure Virtual Desktops, B. Azure App Service, C. Azure Container Instances, D. Azure Kubernetes Service. And the correct answer is option B. Azure App Service. Explanation. App Service enables you to build and host web apps, background jobs, mobile backends, and RESTful APIs in the programming language of your choice without managing infrastructure. It offers automatic scaling and high availability. App Service supports Windows and Linux and enables automated deployments from GitHub, Azure DevOps, or any Git repo to support a continuous deployment model. This platform as a service environment allows you to focus on the website and API logic, while Azure handles the infrastructure to run and scale your web applications. API apps. Much like hosting a website, you can build REST-based web APIs by using your choice of language and framework. You get full Swagger support and the ability to package and publish your API in Azure Marketplace. The produced apps can be consumed from any HTTP or HTTPS-based client. Next question. When you form a Cloud Center of Excellence team or a Cloud Custodian team, the team can use Azure Dash to scale their governance practices throughout the organization. And the options are A. Subscriptions, B. Resource groups, C. Compliance, D. Blueprints. And the correct answer is option D. Blueprints. Explanation. When you form a Cloud Center of Excellence team or a Cloud Custodian team, the team can use Azure Blueprints to scale their governance practices throughout the organization. Implementing a blueprint in Azure Blueprints involves these 3 steps. Number 1, create an Azure blueprint. Number 2, assign the blueprint. Number 3, track the blueprint assignments. With Azure Blueprints, the relationship between the blueprint definition, what should be deployed, and the blueprint assignment, what was deployed, is preserved. In other words, Azure creates a record that associates a resource with the blueprint that defines it. This connection helps you track and audit your deployments. Blueprints are also versioned. Versioning enables you to track and comment on changes to your blueprint. Next question. Which of the following is not a valid way to purchase Azure services? And the options are A. Through any third-party vendor, B. Through a cloud solution provider, C. Directly from the web, D. Through an enterprise agreement. And the correct answer is option A. Through any third-party vendor. Explanation. There are 3 main ways to purchase services on Azure. They are: Number 1, through an enterprise agreement. Larger customers, known as enterprise customers, can sign an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. This agreement commits them to spending a predetermined amount on Azure services over a period of 3 years. The service fee is typically paid annually. As an enterprise agreement customer, you will receive the best customized pricing based on the kinds and amounts of services you plan on using. Number 2, directly from the web. Here, you can purchase Azure services directly from the Azure portal website and pay standard prices. You are billed monthly, either as a credit card payment or through an invoice. This purchasing method is known as Web Direct. Number 3, through a cloud solution provider. A cloud solution provider, CSP, is a Microsoft partner that helps you build solutions on top of Azure. Your CSP bills you for your Azure uses at a price they determine. They also answer your support questions and escalate them to Microsoft as needed. Next question. An Azure service is said to be available to all Azure customers when it is in dash, and the options are A. Fixed preview, B. Private preview, C. Public preview, D. General availability. And the correct answer is option C. Public preview. Explanation. Public preview means that the service is available to everyone with an Azure subscription, but the normal SLAs don't apply. This is different from general availability when the service is available to all Azure customers with SLA-backed guarantees. Question 317. Dash helps you estimate the cost savings of operating your solution on Azure over time compared to operating in your on-premises data center. And the options are A. Azure Blueprints, B. Azure Advisor, C. Azure Pricing Calculator, D. Azure TCO Calculator. And the correct answer is option D. Azure TCO Calculator. Explanation. The TCO calculator helps you estimate the cost savings of operating your solution on Azure over time compared to operating in your on-premises data center. The term total cost of ownership is used commonly in finance. It can be hard to see all the hidden costs related to operating a technology capability on-premises. Software licenses and hardware are additional costs. With the TCO calculator, you will enter the details of your on-premises workloads. Then, you can review the suggested industry average cost, which you can adjust for related operational cost. These costs include electricity, network maintenance, and IT labor. You are then presented with a side-by-side report. Using the report, you can compare those costs with the same workloads running on Azure. Next question. An unlimited number of resources can be added to a subscription. Is it false or true? And the correct answer is, it's false. Explanation. At the beginning of any cloud governance implementation, you identify a cloud organization structure that meets your business needs. This step often involves forming a Cloud Center of Excellence team, also called a Cloud Enablement team or a Cloud Custodian team. This team is empowered to implement governance practices from a centralized location for the entire organization. Teams often start their Azure governance strategy at the subscription level. Subscriptions also have some resource limitations. For example, the maximum number of network Azure Express route circuits per subscription is 10. Those limits should be considered during your design phase. If you will need to exceed those limits, you might need to add more subscriptions. If you hit a hard limit maximum, there is no flexibility to increase it. Management groups are also available to assist with managing subscriptions. A management group manages access, policies, and compliance across multiple Azure subscriptions. You will learn more about management groups later in this module. Next question. Azure pay-as-you-go pricing is an example of CapEx. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is no. Explanation. One of the major changes that you will face when you move from on-premises cloud to the public cloud is the switch from capital expenditure, buying hardware, to operational expenditure, paying for service as you use it. Next question. A unique characteristic of Azure files from files on a corporate file share is that you cannot access the files from anywhere in the world. It has to be from a specific location. Is it no or yes? And the correct answer is, it is no. Explanation. Azure Files offers fully managed file shares in the cloud that are accessible via the industry standard server message block and network file system protocols. Azure file shares can be mounted concurrently by cloud or on-premises deployments of Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. One thing that distinguishes Azure files from files on a corporate file share is that you can access the files from anywhere in the world by using a URL that points to the file. You can also use shared access signature tokens to allow access to a private asset for a specific amount of time. Here's an example of a service SAS URI showing the resource URI and the SAS token. Next question. An Azure web app that queries an on-prem Oracle SQL database is an example of a dash cloud architecture. And the options are A. Public, B. Multi-vendor, C. Hybrid, D. Private. And the correct answer is, it's option C. Hybrid. Explanation. Since you are using both Azure as well as on-prem resources, a combination of both, this is an example of a hybrid cloud. Next question. You can create multiple billing reports per subscription. This is handy when you have multiple departments and need to do a chargeback of cloud cost. Is it true or false? And the correct answer is, it is false. Explanation. You can create one billing report per subscription if you have multiple departments and need to do a chargeback of cloud cost. One possible solution is to organize subscriptions by department or by project. Resource tags can also help. Next question. Azure reserved VM instances are an example of OpEx. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is no. Explanation. A reserved instance is where you pay upfront for the use of a virtual machine for a period of time, 1 or 3 years. This can save you money as you receive a discount on the cost of a VM if you pay upfront for a reserved instance. However, as this is an upfront payment, it will be classed as CapEx, not OpEx. Next question. All the resources residing in a resource group must belong to the same region. Is it no or yes? And the correct answer is it is no. Explanation. Azure resources deployed to a single resource group can be located in different regions. The resource group only contains metadata about the resources it contains. When creating a resource group, you need to provide a location for that resource group. You may be wondering, why does a resource group need a location? And if the resources can have different locations than the resource group, why does the resource group location matter at all? The resource group stores metadata about the resources. When you specify a location for the resource group, you are specifying where that metadata is stored. For compliance reasons, you may need to ensure that your data is stored in a particular region. Next question. Which of the following solutions is the best to store web app user data, device information, and other metadata? And the options are A. Azure Cosmos DB, B. Azure Cache for Redis, C. Azure Table Storage, D. Azure SQL Database. And the correct answer is option C. Azure Table Storage. Next question. A senior security engineer in your company has enforced MFA for all users. How does MFA enhance security? And the options are A. It requires password complexity. B. It requires a password and a code through the Microsoft Authenticator app. C. It uses 2 passwords. D. It requires a social insurance number and a password. And the correct answer is option B. It requires a password and a code through the Microsoft Authenticator app. Explanation. Multi-factor authentication is a process where a user is prompted during the sign-in process for an additional form of identification, such as to enter a code on their cell phone or to provide a fingerprint scan. If you only use a password to authenticate a user, it leaves an insecure vector for attack. If the password is weak or has been exposed elsewhere, is it really the user sign-in with the username and password, or is it an attacker? When we require a second form of authentication, security is increased, as this additional factor isn't something that's easy for an attacker to obtain or duplicate. Azure AD multi-factor authentication works by requiring 2 or more of the following authentication methods. Number 1, something you know, typically a password. Number 2, something you have, such as a trusted device that is not easily duplicated, like a phone or hardware key. Number 3, something you are, biometrics like a fingerprint or face scan. Users can register themselves for both self-service password reset and Azure AD multi-factor authentication in one step to simplify the onboarding experience. Administrators can define what forms of secondary authentication can be used. Azure AD multi-factor authentication can also be required when users perform a self-service password reset to further secure that process. Next question. Dash help to enforce organizational standards to assess compliance at a scale and implement governance for resource consistency, regulatory compliance, security and management. And the options are A. Templates, B. Resource logs, C. Resource groups, D. Policies. And the correct answer is option D. Policies. Explanation. Azure Policy helps to enforce organizational standards and to assess compliance at scale. Through its compliance dashboard, it provides an aggregated view to evaluate the overall state of the environment, with the ability to drill down to the per resource, per policy granularity. It also helps to bring your resources to compliance through bulk remediation for existing resources and automatic remediation for new resources. Common use cases for Azure Policy include implementing governance for resource consistency, regulatory compliance, security, cost, and management. Policy definitions for these common use cases are already available in your Azure environment as built-ins to help you get started. Next question. Which of the following is an example of an Azure application platform? And the options are A. Azure Load Balancer, B. Azure App Service, C. Azure Cache for Redis, D. Azure Firewall, E. Azure DNS. And the correct answer is option B. Azure App Service. Explanation. Azure App Service is an HTTP-based service for hosting web applications, REST APIs, and mobile backends. You can develop in your favorite language, be it Net, Netcore, Java, Ruby, Node.js, PHP, or Python. Applications run and scale with ease on both Windows and Linux-based environments. For Linux-based environments, see App Service on Linux. Using Azure App Service, it is also possible to scale apps on an enterprise-grade platform. Next question. Each Azure subscription can contain multiple account administrators. Is it no or yes? And the correct answer is it is no. Explanation. It is possible to assign multiple administrators to a particular subscription. However, there is only one account administrator. To manage access to Azure resources, you must have the appropriate administrator role. Azure has an authorization system called Azure Role-Based Access Control with several built-in roles you can choose from. You can assign these roles at different scopes, such as management group, subscription, or resource group. By default, the person who creates a new Azure subscription can assign other users administrative access to a subscription. Next question. You can enforce Azure AD multi-factor authentication for all users via the Microsoft Authenticator app, phone call, or SMS code. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it is no. Explanation. Azure AD multi-factor authentication is a Microsoft service that provides multi-factor authentication capabilities. Azure AD multi-factor authentication enables users to choose an additional form of authentication during sign-in, such as a phone call or mobile app notification. The Azure Active Directory Free Edition enables Azure AD multi-factor authentication for administrators with the global admin level of access via the Microsoft Authenticator app, phone call, or SMS code. You can also enforce Azure AD multi-factor authentication for all users via the Microsoft Authenticator app only by enabling security defaults in your Azure AD tenant. Thank you for watching this video. Buy our AZ 900 premium questions with 50% off. Check link in the description.